Welcome to a new episode of Commander Food Fight Deck Tech. Before we get into it, I just want to let you know you can now support us on Patreon. And a big shout out to our first two Patreons, Manny Mata and Stephen Downey. You guys are awesome. Part of the joy of being a Patreon is you get to decide some of the next deck techs, and this one was decided by Manny. We are going to jump into Jegantha the Wellspring 4 and a red-green hybrid for a 5/5 elemental elk that has tap, add Wooburg. This mana can't be spent to pay generic mana costs. But we're going to take it one step further and use a companion from the new set, Obosh the Preypiercer, 3 and 2 Rakdos. For the companion, your starting deck contains only cards with odd converted mana costs. If a source you control with an odd converted mana cost will deal damage to a permanent or player, it deals double that damage instead. As with most of my videos, we're going to start off with the most important category, the ramp. We're going to have a smaller ramp package because we can only use odd spells, like Cultivate and Kodama's Reach. We're going to add this up with some cost reduction in artifact ramp, like Urza's Incubator, Soul Ring, the Great Henge, Gilded Lotus, Herald's Horn, Command Sphere. We're going to have some creatures that are going to help us out with our ramping. Mana dorks like Birds of Paradise, Elvish Mystic, Fabor Elder, Dryad of Elysian Grove, and Dragon Speaker Shama for cost reduction. We're going to have some utility creatures like Morphon the Boundless, Golas the Tireless Pilgrim, Nethroi Apex of Death, 2 white, black, green for a 5/5 Death Touch Lifelink Cat Nightmare Beast with Mutate, 4 green, black, hybrid, black, black. Whenever this creature mutates, return any number of target creature cards with total power 10 or less from your graveyard to the battlefield. This is usually only going to get us one of our creatures, but that creature will be the most powerful one in our graveyard. Illuna, Apex of Wishes, 2 green, blue, red for a 6/6 Beast Elemental Dinosaur with Mutate, 3 red, green, hybrid, and 2 blue for a flying trample. Whenever this creature mutates, exile cards from the top of your library until you exile a non-land permanent card. Put that card onto the battlefield or into your hand. Another great card advantage engine for our deck. And to round out utility creatures, we're going to have Surak Dragonclaw to protect all of our creatures, Perforos the Bronze Blooded, as well as Yennet Cryptic Sovereign to help with our odd casting cost spells. Now to get into the bread and butter of our creatures, the dragons. Cards like Dragonlord Ojutai, Daragaz the Reincarnated, Bladewing the Risen, Balefire Dragon, Dragonlord Atarka, and Atarka World Render. As well as Scale Lord Reckoner, Kolagon the Storm's Fury, Karthus Tyrant of Jund, Intet the Dreamer, Dracuseth Maw of Flames, and of course the Dragon. We also have Tyrant's Familiar, Scourge of Valkis, Terror of Mount Velis to give our creatures double strike, Scourge of Valkis, and Zerillion of the Claw, which is one of the very few tutors we run in this deck. Now on to our interaction. We're going to start off with a decent amount of removal, Anguished Unmaking, Living Death, Kindred Dominance for a one-sided board wipe, Vandal Blast to get rid of those pesky artifact decks, Blasphemous Act, Path to Exile, Mythos of Nethroi, which is one of the new spells out of Ikoria, Krosan Grip, Generous Gift, Beast Within, and Chaos Warp. Now, our creatures are obviously going to be scary, some of the scariest on the board, and when they get removed, we need to be able to replenish, and we're going to do that with card draw. Now, of course, one of the restrictions we have, which limits us, is the odd mana cost in all of our spells. So we use cards like Elemental Bond, Lifecrafter's Bestiary, Return of the Wild Speaker, Vanquisher's Banner, and Kindred Discovery to help us keep our hands full. Now we're going to add some fun cards. This is where we get to bring the jank. Cards like Fist of Suns, 1,000-Year Elixir, Freed from the Real, Maelstrom Nexus, Zendikar Resurgent, Temur Ascendancy, and Concordant Crossroads. Now, this being a jank deck, we do have to have some synergies to give us a little bit of a fighting chance. Everything made a little bit more complicated by only being able to use odd-costing spells. First up, we have the interactions between our commander Jegantha and Freed from the Real. With these two spells on the field, we can generate virtually infinite mana with the exception of blue. We can then use that mana for the fire-breathing effects on Scourge of Valkis or Bladewing the Risen, or to tutor up what we need with Xyrillion. The next synergy is obviously Morphin the Boundless, Naming Dragons, and Fist of Suns. If we have one of our card draw spells into effect, we can potentially play out our whole deck. Next category are lands. We are using a 5-color mana base. Pretty standard, using as many of the fetch lands as you may have, as well as some of the new Triome Tri-lands out of Ikoria. We also have some of our utility and pain lands like Mana Confluence, City of Brass, Rogue's Passage, as well as Kessig Wolfrun. Round that out with the basic lands, and you've got yourself a pretty consistent mana base. So what are your thoughts about this deck? I tried to go a unique direction using one of the companion cards as well as some of the new mutate creatures. What cards would you add or change? Would you put more tutors in? More removal? How would you change this for your meta? Leave your thoughts in the comments below.